So in this lecture, we will go ahead and learn how to add pagination to our website. So right now, if you can see, we have these items in here and I've added this additional item in here. So what you can do is that you can go ahead and add as many items as you want over here. So for pagination, what we wish to do is that instead of having all the items listed on a single page, let's say we want to limit the number of items which we display on a single page. So right now we don't have much items here, so we will actually add pagination for only 4 items, but you can simply change that by changing a single number. So let's go ahead and see how exactly we can design pagination for this particular website. So the very first thing which you need to do here is you need to go into the view, which is the index view, and in here once you implement the search functionality, so right now you have the search functionality in here. So whenever you implement and actually finish off the search functionality, then you actually need to go ahead and have the pagination code right below the search code. And the reason why you want to have the pagination code below the search code is obviously because first of all, you make a search, then you get a list of product which matches up your search criteria, and when that match happens, you now have a bunch of products in your product objects, and then you actually want to paginate to display those products on the first page. So now let's go ahead and see how exactly can we implement this. So what you can do here is that first of all, you need to go ahead and import the paginator. So in order to import paginator, you type from django.co.paginator import, that's going to be paginator. So once you have imported paginator, we now go ahead and create the instance of the paginator. So in order to create the instance, we will go right here when the code for the search actually ends. So the search code ends over here. So here I'll go ahead and give a comment and say something like paginator code, and let's actually go ahead and name this thing as search code. So now that we add these comments, we now know what kind of code block performs what sort of action. So now in here, let's instantiate the paginator object. So I'll type in paginator equals, that's going to be paginator, and in here we are actually going to pass in the product objects which we have right over here. So I'll pass in the product objects in here, and then you actually want to display the number of items you want on a single page. So right now let's set this limit to 4 because we don't have a lot of objects in our database to test. So let's keep it to 4, and later on you can simply go ahead and change this single number if you want less number, or let's say more number of items on your web page. So now once we have that, we now go ahead and get the page. So I'll type in page equals, that's actually going to be request dot get, which means we have actually extracted the page here and we have stored it into page, and now we simply pass in this particular page to the paginator to get that particular page. So once we have this page number, we can actually get that particular page from the paginator, and we can save those objects in product objects. So I can type in product objects equals paginator dot get underscore page, and I can get those items on that particular page by typing in page over here. So that means we are pretty much good to go. And now what finally happens is that whenever we get the items from that page, those objects actually get passed as product objects as a context over here. So as you can see, these product objects, which are nothing but the products we get after paginating, are being passed right over here. So once we do that, now we need to go ahead and make a few changes in the template, which is the index.html template. So let's hop back to the index.html page, and in here in the index.html, we wish to add the paginator buttons, that is the 1, 2, 3 and 4 number of pages which we have. So if you actually switch to Google Chrome, as you can see here we have our products, and now here we want to have the navigation or the paginator's navigation which displays which page we are currently on, how to go to the previous page and the next page. So let's go ahead and add that navigation up over here. So if you go to Visual Studio Code, you need to go right below when the product listing actually ends. So right now, if you have a look over here, we have this particular thing, which is the search bar. Then we have this particular row which holds all the products, and this main div over here is the actual div for the container. So you want to stay inside the container, and we need to create a new row. So I'll go ahead and type in div class equals row, and then let's go ahead and create the actual navigation in here. So first of all, I'll have a column in here. So I'll type in div class call dash md dash, and let's say this column only spans 3 columns, and let's go ahead and give it some offset. So I'll type in offset dash md dash 4. So now in here we go ahead and create a ul class, that is a class for the unordered list. So I'll type in ul. The class is going to be pagination, and in here we now need to go ahead and add list elements. But even before that, let's go ahead and learn how exactly we can add them. So first of all, we actually want to go ahead and add a link for the previous page. So how exactly would we know that we want to enter the previous page? So in order to do that, we make use of the if conditional here. So we say that if, and in here, in order to check if the page actually has the previous page, you first go ahead and make use of the context, which is product objects right here. So you see if the product object actually has some previous content. So you say if product underscore objects dot has underscore previous, and we go ahead and end the if here. So I'll type in end if. So now similar to this, we also want to go ahead and make the navigation for proceeding to the next page as well. So in order to make sure if the product object has next, we type in if product objects dot has underscore next, and we end that if block over here. So I'll type in end if. So we have taken care of both of these things here, and now let's go ahead and write some code in there. So whenever we discover that the product object actually has some previous items, in that case what we want to do is that we first want to go ahead and create a list element. So I'll type in li, and the class for this is going to be page dash item, and in this li class we actually want to include the link to the previous page. So in here I'll type in a. The href for this is going to be question mark page, because we obviously type in question mark page then equal to the page number. So this is going to be the static part, and now in order to create the dynamic part, which is the page number, we use the template syntax, and in here, in order to get the previous page number, we get that previous page number from the product objects itself. So I'll type in product underscore objects dot previous underscore page underscore number. So this is actually going to give us access to the previous page number, and in here for the link's name we are going to type in previous. So now once we have that, we are pretty much done designing this particular list element, and we have ended this if here. Now let's write the same code for getting the page number of the next page. So for that very purpose, we can simply copy this particular code right here and paste it right in here, and there are a few changes we need to make here. So instead of this previous, we will say something like next, and now in order to get the next page number, I can simply go ahead and replace this previous with next, and we are good to go. So now once we go ahead and do that, now the only part which remains is how exactly can we access the current page. So accessing the current page is quite simple. For that, what you can simply do is you can go right here in between, because obviously we want to display the current page in between the previous page and the next page. So in here I can go ahead and simply paste the code which we had over here, and we will say this is going to have a class of active because this is currently going to be the active link. And then for the href over here, what we can do is that in order to get the page number, you can simply go ahead and type in product underscore objects dot simply the number and not the page number. So now we have this code, we are pretty much good to go. So let's now go ahead and see if our paginator actually works. So let me go back over here, and if I hit refresh, as you can see, now we only have 4 items in here, and we have previous and the next. So the previous one won't work, and if we click on next, as you can see, we have the next page in here. But there's one issue right over here, that is if you actually go to the paginator, as you can see, we have still named this thing as previous, and that needs to be changed. So in here, instead of displaying something like previous, we say something like the current. So I'll say current over here. I'll save the code, and now if we go back and if we hit refresh, as you can see, we have the current because we don't have the previous. So we only have access to the current page and the next page. And now in here, as there is no next page, we don't have any sort of next in here. So we only have the previous and we have the current. So if I click on previous, I go back to this particular page right here. And one more thing which you could do here is that instead of actually having these display as links, you can make them look sort of like a button by adding a simple class called as page link. So in here, if you go back, you can simply go ahead, and for this particular unordered list, we have the class as pagination, but for the link tags over here, you can say that it has a class of page dash link, and you can do the same thing with all the link tag which we have here. So you can copy this, paste it over here, and paste it over here as well. So now if you save the code, go back and hit refresh, as you can see, now you have the proper buttons in here instead of actually having those links. So you have the next, the previous, and the current displayed as a proper button. And we also have highlighted the current page which we are currently on. So that's it for this lecture, and I hope you guys understood how to implement pagination. And in the next lecture, we will go ahead and design the detail view for these products. So right now, as you can see, we don't have any sort of detail view in here, which actually displays the details of these items over here. So for that, we are going to create a completely different view, a completely different URL pattern, and we are going to see how we can link those detail views with these individual items right here. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.